Hello, everyone. Once again, Gavi is joining us from his virtual beach, and I am waiting to be struck by inspiration. But before we started today's podcast, I was talking a bit apropos of what we're going to discuss today. I was looking at my news feed, and we make jokes about the algorithm and what the algorithm sends us. But how much that's true is sort of staggering. Think about for just a moment how many social media feeds you have in your life. Do you have an Instagram? Do you have a Facebook? Do you have a Twitter, right? Are you part of a WhatsApp group? So last night I took myself out to dinner and I watched the Monday night football game, right? And I didn't stay through the whole thing, so I came home and I searched the score. And now, for the last hour and a half, I've been getting things in my feed about, you know, last night's football game. And it's amazing how quickly that thing multiplies, right? And then you add this idea of what news the algorithm is giving us. And it gets into something Gavi wants to talk about today.
And I cover that. Yeah, so first of all, shame on you for watching Monday Night Football.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's just a dig.
yeah, it was
That's
great.
our friendship.
I cheered. My team won.
There you go. So one of the things we discussed in Wearing a Diamond was about choosing good news over bad news, right? And I'm going to tie it into very similar to algorithms and put it together. So bear with me for a little bit. So my whole concept on that is you have to recognize how deeply we're affected by what we hear. Yeah. Um, Positive and negative. And the reason why I'm going to bring it into yours is that you choose the Monday Night Football because you know what, it's cultural. You brought up with that. You enjoy it. It's a time to maybe just relax and detox and just watch it. Right? You choose that. Right? That's what you chose. Now, what's the negative side is that they've decided now you watch this. We think that you can watch that.
Right.
Right? And that's where I kind of like will agree with you is that the algorithm has chosen what it thinks you need and based upon what, right?
Right.
So that's why I basically want to bring it out is to the fact that I want to talk about good news, bad news, but also really I think that feel that it's really a concept of choice,
Right.
right? And I feel the other thing I will say as a side point for all these things about wearing, the diamonds. Is the one thing I really, really, really want to iterate and constantly is that it's the small things. It's really the small things. Everything we've been saying and will say and have said. If you really look at it, it's the small things. It's not the big things, right? And it's very similar, like just like you're talking about the news. It's the small thing watching the Monday Night Football, right? But it's the big thing is what they want you to watch, right?
Right.
So you kind of like, unless you think, and that's hopefully what we want to do this series is to think and realize who you are, what you can give, and how you have the ability to change, and how your ability to act, and how your ability to affect people is you choose. So let's go with the premise of like good news or bad news, whatever you watch affects you, right?
It's your input. It's your
Input,
your
right?
environment, your
Environment.
stream of input.
So I'll give you a. I remember years and years ago reading a thing of is that people don't realize if you watch someone watching, say, a movie, right, a comedy movie, right, and you just watch them, right, when a person laughs or smiles, the body relax and But if you're watching a like a horror film or a suspense, what happens
You
is that
tighten up.
you tense up, you don't realize it, right? It's because your body is so incredible that it reacts to scenarios, real or not real, according to what it is. So therefore, if that's the case, right, then you're affected, right? Your brain is affected, your body is affected, your digestive system's affected, right? That fight or flight or that relax and enjoy. As just come to my mind, I've got a. We talked about the very first one about all these books on my shelf. I have an interesting book about a guy who wanted to experiment um, on seeds, right? So he did one of them. He had pleasant uh, comedy, laughter, and for music. And the other room he had um, the opposite, negative talk and dark music, right? And what he did was is he compared and contrast after say like a month, and he saw that the healthy seeds were flourishing at a much better rate, and the ones negative was like kind of handicapped in regard it was third of the size. It wasn't as vibrant. And he went, "Oh, that's an interesting thing." And then he just decided to do it with snowflakes. Okay, I don't remember the whole thing, but basically what he did was he had snowflakes, and he did the same experiment and did the same experiment with snowflakes with the negative, and the pictures were more vibrant and clear and contrast, and the other one was kind of like about showing you the pictures, and it's not worth showing it. It was like literally a mirror image of each other. So his whole thesis was you can affect by by what you hear and what you see and how you come across. The expression you talk to your plants and they'll grow, right? That kind of thing.
What I find
Right?
interesting, or a little bit, I guess, saddening, is how much out there is that stuff that wouldn't make your plant grow. There used to be a thing in news, sometimes I'm sure it still is in journalism. If it bleeds, it leads, right? And there's this idea that negative news gets our attention, right? And there's all sorts of fancy words for it: catharsis, schadenfreude, right? Happiness at the misfortune of others,
Yeah,
happiness that it's not happening to us, right? And that may be true in small doses, but the amount of negative input out there for us is staggering.
totally,
And we now live in a society where so many of us live in a world where if we listen to the negative, the algorithm, which sounds like something, but the mechanism that gives us our information, right, sends us more of that, right? That negativity begets negativity,
totally.
all sort of automatically, right? Because we haven't chosen. We're just riding along.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing is that, good news sells and bad news excites,
Right.
right? Reality is that if something's real, you shouldn't have to sell it. You should just honest the thing on. So, you know, I always remember I was here 9/11, right? And what shocked me, besides the horrific incident, that take that aside, was the next day how it was dramatized in a movie, right? As opposed to, just the facts. Now, I talking about 9/11, I also remember I was in New York at the time, and take it for what it is, that I remember there was a news conference with, at the time, the mayor of New York was Giuliani. Right?
Right.
Forget about your opinion. And I always remember, this is the reason I say this, is due to the fact that it was a few days after the horrific and everything didn't know what was going on. It was bomber. And I always remember watching that the reporters kept asking, how many people are dead? How many people are dead? Where is this? And I remember him stopping and going, they're all very good questions, but they're not for right now. Right. And I was like, whoa, that just hit me. And this is how many 30 odd years later. It's the same concept, is that due to the fact that sometimes we don't need to know everything. Right. What's the expression? The expression is um, bad news. Bad news is that time flies.
Right.
Good news is you are the pilot, right?
Right.
You choose what you want to listen to. Now, the other problem is if you constantly hear one perspective, one perspective, one perspective, negative, then what happens is most people don't. That's what they'll hear psychologically. So instinctively, if you hear negative news, right, you're going to turn negative. It's just the way it is. And we've seen it even psychologically with children, right? Children that have been bereaved and not abused, but kind of belittled,
Right.
right? They're not going to grow as much as someone who's loved and hugged and embraced, right? It's just a natural thing. So the algorithms, in a way, you've got to ask the question, what do they want from you? And if you
So
be
what do you
honest with yourself, there's something they want to sell you, right? That they're better than everyone else. There's no such thing as perfection, right? Sometimes to have a real picture, you have to have you know, both sides, and then you basically take a bit of salt and you in the middle, right?
And I
It,
think I think what well, the danger is, and what do you say to the person that says, "I am not negative. It's a bad world. It's a dangerous world. It's an unpleasant world. Just look at it, right? Look at the news, right?" And has that person been, I don't want to say poisoned, but sort of programmed to look for the negative, right? In a way that causes them to not choose to focus on things that are more positive for them.
so I'll say two things. One I wrote down. We're doing research for this to answer you, and then I'll say what my father once told me. So the quote was, when people say they can't see anything good in life slash you, whatever it is, and that's what life is. The answer is hug them and say life is difficult when you're blind,
Right.
right? Is that reality is that not everything is bad as what you see, and not everything is good as what you think, right? So my father used to tell me is that when you see a situation, imagine it's chapter three.
Mm,
It's brilliant. Why? Because reality, yes, there are terrible things that go on there, and it's like you hate the sin but love the person, right? The news, in a way, puts it the other way. You hate the person and love the sin because it sells and it sounds like every movie. Let's be honest. You see they have to add in intimacy and sex and violence. Really, if you suddenly took that out, say out of the, you can still give over a beautiful story, right? Or a muse or an article, whatever it is.
right.
Sometimes we throw it in, and what happens is, like you said very much yourself, is that if you think negative, you become negative. So if you're looking at it to dramatize everything, you're going to twist it in a way. I guarantee that if that's the way you are, you're probably like that in your life because it's instinctively. It's like when you're given a vaccination. What they're doing, they're putting the poison, not poison, the
The
antibody
illness,
inside
yeah.
you, so your body rejects it, knows out it. The same thing is you're if you try to be a positive person, you try to wear your diamonds in a positive how to affect people, and you put in that's what you focus on, you choose. If you go into a room that you feel negativity, you will cringe and you just got to get out because it's claustrophobic, right? Because even when the sun shines, it may be cloudy, but the sun is still there, right?
So how do you help people choose?
Uh,
Mhm. I
how
mean,
do you do
that's the
it?
crux of your work, Gavi. When we get right down to it, you're helping people choose to be different and choose to live their story and choose to wear their diamond. And
So,
so the person comes to you in your practice and they say the world is negative, and you help them understand that that's a perception, right? A certain amount of that is what you're choosing to see in your situation, right? But the next step that's so hard is getting them to see the positive. And
so,
and how do you do that? What's the
it's a
mechanism?
great question. I do it all the time. You're right, and so I'll do two things. I have it near here. I have a poem. I'll give you, and I read it to my clients. But first of all, I say to them, um, I was once reading a book, and it's true ever, but just the book. The books I have, just the
Right.
reason I bring it just to show you that I didn't make it up. So it's when you see it in the real. Billy Connolly, right? The
Oh, the great
Scottish
poet.
comedian, right?
Yeah.
Whether you like him or hate him, he, as like most of these comedians, the same with Michael Palin. As they get older, they do travel documentaries. Anyway, he writes. He was doing the Route 66,
Right.
right? And he happened to stop somewhere on the line, and it was like a museum to something that he related to in his past, and it was as he was walking through it, basically it was an obituary of this person.
Right.
And he said in the book, like he started thinking about obituaries, and then for about a week afterwards, he decided I'm going to read obituaries every single day. And this was his theory: was that I wish obituaries were closer to the front pages of the newspapers, because if you look at an obituary, 99% of the time you talk about how good this person did in this world, what this person achieved, right? And he's like, and I say this to people to answer your question, and then I'll read this poem that I tell people, not a poem, it was a quotation of
Right.
someone from graduation years ago. So the basically is that if you make a choice and there's no wrong answer, but you decide what you want. If you're honest enough with yourself, your life, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to remember? For the good or for the bad, or for the challenges or the negative? Or if I turn around and said, my dear friend David, he was such a good friend because you know what, X, Y, and Z, and you give the qualities. Now, how would you feel right now? As opposed to if I said, right, David, you are such a, what would you rather have? You rather have it. So when people come along, I say, well, first of all, as I told you before, congratulations, you decided you want to change your life. Now, your choice is, do you want to be more positive than negative, or do you want to be more proactive as defensive, or do you want to try and reach for the stars as opposed to the ground?
And I know
So
you have a lot of people write, right? This activity of writing down and visualizing. I don't know if you have them write their obituaries or not. But this might not be a bad idea, but this idea of writing down the person they want to be, sort of writing it into existence.
yeah, because I said in the last one, my favorite thing is a pen. You asked me why, because sometimes when you write down, it comes a bit more concrete as opposed to esoterically concepts. Um, so to carry on that thing, so choice. So basically, the whole thing is about choice. So this is what you ask me when someone comes along. So this is what I say to them, and I'm quoting, right? So I've got it right in front of me. Okay, this person said hate. Okay, so you got the negative and the positive in this thing. So hate has 4 letters. So does love. Enemies have 7 letters. So does friendship. Lying has 5. So does truth. Failure is 7. So does success. Cry, when you cry, has 3. So does joy. And then finally, negative has 20 letters, and positivity has, oh, sorry, negativity has 10 letters, and positivity has 2. So here's my thing. I've just given you one, two, three, four, five, six choices.
Balanced words. Yeah.
Me to say is that yes, there are times when you have to cry because it's sad. Someone just died. It's not time to go, and at that moment you bury him. Whoa, he's successful life. No, you have to come. There's a time and place for everything. But as a whole, just the reason this is basically hate and love. There's 4 letters. That means what you give it is equal. Just what you choose to do it, right? So we need good news as much as we need bad news. But do you need to live in the bad news, or do you have to live in the good news? What should you rather choose? But you also have to be realistic. For every nail you put up there, you may bang your thumb, but at least you've, put it up. Um,
And that dips into my little box of Gavi wisdom that I share with people. I was having this discussion. Back in March, I had emergency back surgery.
yes, I remember that.
And what happened is I had some tingling in my feet, and I went in and I was like, I have a little bit of numbness in my feet. I don't know what's going on. And they said, yeah, you're, a very small distance away from being paralyzed. We're going to have to do emergency back surgery. And it's serious when they don't let you leave, right? They tell you, they put you in a hospital bed, and then they tell you you're getting surgery the next day. And this is
Not
in
let
America's
go.
healthcare system, ladies and gentlemen. So, um, and a lot of people have a lot more difficult health challenges, but this was serious, and there were some significant complications, and I was on a ventilator for 24 hours. And you had told me once when we talked about our cancer, it's okay to say this sucks, and it did suck. But I decided, like you said, there's a time and a place, but even in that time and place, you can focus on a piece of it.
Yes.
And I said, this is a bad situation that I don't have a lot of control over. Quite literally, at one point, I guess I tried to pull the tube out and they tied my hands to the bed. So, talk about literally not having a lot of control, right? So, but what I decided is I could focus on being a positive patient. I wasn't going to spread that around. I was going to look at some of the humor in it, right? And I was going to look at some of the I was going to be appreciative of the people that were caring for me. And it really, I think, helped me in those few days in the hospital, right? And then another place that focus came around. and is still coming around, right? Is I get up to this is again the nature of American healthcare. The bills are still coming, right? Right.
Still
And
thinking about you. Isn't it
yeah, they're
amazing?
still thinking about me, right? And so I go there, and it's a bill for something, and I keep thinking I'm done, and I've paid everybody, and another bill comes. And I have to remind myself that I am walking to the mailbox to get my bills, and that's the positive. And I can look at this as a negative experience, right? And every time I write the check, there's a moment where I'm like, but I can also look at the positives. I'm happier with the outcome. And I would say that's one of the things we talked about and that stayed with me is in a situation that's bad, there is a piece that's not, or there's a in the rock slide, there's a pebble you can move, right?
Yep.
And that's how you do it. And that was something that stuck with me at the time. And I don't know if you tell that to clients, right? But like, right, you must. I know you have some people come to you, without violating confidence, that are like really in some difficult circumstances, but you can still help them find that piece that's positive to move them forward.
Totally. So not to kind of like listen, you and I obviously we've evolved to
Right,
try and be more positive, negative. Not everyone's like that. And sometimes if you say to someone, you've got to be positive, it's very, very hard. So
right,
what I do sometimes to them, I say, fine, don't choose a side, be neutral. And they look at me, I'm crazy.
right,
And the reason why I say that is due to the fact that to be neutral the whole time is impossible.
right,
But if you're not willing to look at left or right, just be in the moment. What will happen is you get this wonderful, very to some people it's kind of like um, creepy because they're not used to
right,
themselves, right? So what happens is that you stop, right? Don't take a side, just stop. And if you're willing to be honest at that moment in time, being neutral, right, you will hear what you need to hear. And once you hear it, then you can make the choice. Because reality is that there's I want to say this doesn't sound controversial, and I've said this to you before, maybe off record, that suicides, right?
right,
The best one I ever heard about someone preventing suicide was you say to them, "I'm going to jump," and again, I don't want this
right,
misconstrued, so I have to say this here. Is that the best one I ever heard was that someone was relating that he met someone who wanted to commit suicide, and they called him out, and they were expecting him to coax him off by saying, why do you want to kill yourself, right? The sunshine, whatever it is.
yeah,
So when he gets up there and he turned around and said, "So what are you doing?" And the guy said, "I'm going to jump," and he went, "Okay, jump." And this guy was like, "What?" He said, I'm not here to have a discussion. You've chosen whatever you do. That's your choice." And this guy writes in this thing, he was so blown away that it was like a neutral.
right.
He had to then make the decision. Okay, the reason I want to jump is why do I want to jump? Right? That's why I took it from it. Is that there are times when, okay, it is what it is. Now you decide what you want to do with it. Now,
And I
I
think
could,
of every holiday table where there's like we're in the holiday season, and every holiday table where there's family disagreement, right? And there are sides, whether it's family politics or ancient family dynamics or hurt or disagreement, right? Where everybody's choosing a side. And you're talking about just being still and listening to yourself in that moment, right? And not being pressured by the noise, but finding what's going on inside of you, right?
totally.
And I wonder, I mean, again, suicide is an extreme example, and our
Okay, so
hearts
let
go
me let
out.
me bring it back political thing. Right,
Right,
I'll do exactly the same thing. Is that, and I've told you this before, and I believe in this. Is that whatever you disagree with, right, radically or just think, well, if I could answer you and say, why do you believe in that? Right? Don't give me not what everyone else says. Why do you believe in it? Right? Most people can't answer it
right.
because they've never got to the point of just listening
To
and
themselves.
that's what I'm saying by neutral. If I say,
Right,
why do you hate X, Y, and Z?
right.
So most people say, well, other people say, no, 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 no.
Because I've
Why do
been
you?
listening to people that hate them, and I hate them too, right? And
Again,
that's
so then
back to our
it's the
premise.
neutral. If you can explain to me why you're neutral enough to hear both sides, let me hear this side and say maybe it's not true. It's chapter three, both sides, right? Again, not both are right. There's more. You can. I can paint a picture. I'll give you a personal experience. This is not anything. I once, as you know, I once worked for a summer camp
Right.
many years ago, right? And I used to fly out from London, and he lived in Manchester at the time, and I used to go down to London and fly to London. And I had a friend that was the night manager of a hotel. And just due to fact, this is past. This is the past the time of uh, statute of limitations, so I can say the story. Anyway, I used to be honest. I used to stay over at my friend's for free, right? Because he was a night manager, and
Slip you into a
yes,
room.
I abused it. But at that time of night, there was no one there, right? So anyway, so I always remember. Um, I came down to breakfast, and he used to finish his shift at breakfast, so we used to have breakfast together, and then he used to go to bed, and I used to go to the airport. So it happened to be once I was at the table, we're having breakfast, and the next table over there was this guy, and he was such a outspoken opinionist or whatever it is, and everything that whoever he was talking to, he was just destroying them, and he was really obnoxious. And me being me, I just turned around and said, "Excuse me, I'm just trying to have breakfast. Quiet. Can you just kind of keep your peace?" And the guy turned around and said to me, "Who do you think you are? You know who I am? Ready? Do you know who I
Yeah.
am?" And he just decided to give me his obituary of it. He's a blah blah blah. And then when he finished ranting, I turned around and said, "Hi, my name is Gavi, and I am a design water engineer, no, freelance design water engineer, and I'm off to New York to see one of my clients." And this guy wasn't expecting it. It blew him away, right? And it shut him up, right? Sat down, I'm doing it, and my friend turned around and says, "Gavi, you're not. What? You're such a lie, you know." I said, "What do you mean?" At that time, I was working as a plumber. He said, "You're a plumber." I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "I know who I am." And this guy didn't, right? He thought he was great because X, Y, and Z. What's a plumber? It's someone who looks at water, it has a blueprints of a map. So I'm freelance. I'm going by myself. I'm going to work as the maintenance in this camp for the thing on. I'm a designer, water engineer. And he laughed. And the reason I tell you this story is due to the fact that most people, if you ask them, right? Why are you arguing about it, right? You can either turn around and say, "This is who I am," but you don't know who you are, or you can turn around and say, "I'm a plumber," or you can turn around and say, "Really? I would explain it in detailed words because I know exactly who I am and I can blow you away because you don't understand what it was." Right?
So I
That's
think
the,
that
that's the neutralism because if you're honest enough for yourself, you know exactly who you are, what you are, how you can use it for your advantage and to sharpen people up or to show things more. Right now, it's a little bit of holy chutzpah, right? But most
But I
people don't
would
see
say that you
neutral.
have a positive outlook on who you were at that moment, right? You can be a plumber or you can be just a plumber, right?
Yeah.
It's like the teacher that says, "Ah, what do I do? I teach math." No, you don't. You change lives, right? You can say either one of those things. And again, it's focusing on the negative or the positive, right? And I think one of the hardest words that we say, hard on us, that hurts us the most, is that word just. I'm just
Yes.
a mother. I'm just at home. I'm just a teacher, right? I'm just one person, right? Well, as you've said many times, that one person can make all the difference.
So again, you absolutely and agree. So to answer your question, is that you don't just you become negative positive because your algorithms from Monday Night Thing one, but you choose to take what you want. But if to answer your question, if someone comes in, right, just try for a moment, be neutral. Like whatever you're sitting, once we said goodbye, you're gonna go back and do your incredible work, what you do. But if you stop for a second and said to myself, how would I describe what I am or what I do, right? For you it wouldn't take too long because again, like I said, we worked upon each other for such a long time. But if you're coming in with stop before you choose which side you want to do, just look at both sides and be that neutral, and then make the decision.
And I think once you balance that, You might feel the weight of positivity
Yeah,
pulling you.
that's hopefully the answer. Answer is because reality is that whether you like it or not, good is always going to outdo bad. That's just every movie, every book, every life, right?
That's an archetypal lesson.
That's just
Good wins.
because it has to, because reality is that it just has to.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things that it just does, right? And the
And everyone
difference,
agrees.
right? The difference between success and failure can be as simple as timing, right? You
Yeah,
haven't succeeded yet. So what we are going to encourage you to do, listeners, is we're going to encourage you to watch what's coming into your frame. Watch your influences. And in that moment where you're feeling negative, just choose to see both sides. Choose to understand that there may be a positive outcome. You don't have to feel it yet. Like Gavi's saying, that can be challenging. But let's just take a moment and sit in the middle and see where we get pulled. And the positive person that you want to be, write that person into existence, right? You can go to Gavi's website, and I think there are some prompts there. Uh, Email Gavi directly, right? And go to the website, email Gavi directly, and he can get you started on this process. This is something that he does extraordinarily well. But until we talk again, be mindful of your mindset.
totally.
And I am going to wish everyone a good day. And when you're at that holiday dinner table and you're looking at your influences, keep them positive. We will see
Yeah,
you
yeah.
soon.
God bless.